You want?
Yeah, put it on the table.
And,
Oh, I gotta drink this wine really fast.
and bring your glasses because we're gonna need to connect.
Oh,
We'll be able to see the TV.
Yeah, come back over here.
all right, we are live.
Woo!
What's up, Richard?
Are you cold?
Okay. We can pour. It's close enough. It's up as far as it can go, honey.
Who you calling honey, honey?
I was like, darling.
It's so weird when my mom still calls me names like that.
Because I'm your mom,
You're gonna be called that till you're like maybe.
at least. I'm gonna live till at least 100. So
Girl, okay.
just give me the bottle. I'll recycle. Thank you, sweetie.
Now Carrie is sweetie.
Cause yeah, you're younger than I am, so you're a sweetie. Okay, are you guys ready or no?
Yeah, I'm not.
Okay. I can't see. I don't know how much I do. Thank you.
Oh, my bad. I think I gotta get them out. Yay!
I got enough for Robin. You gotta drink.
Anyway. What is it? Just like rosé in the middle?
Yeah.
So this is a
Break wine. It's Saturday.
Like Robin.
What?
BFF.
so this is a Rhone. This is French. It is a 2018, and they're gonna tell you all about it here shortly.
Shortly.
Shortly. Yeah, we haven't started yet. Okay. Well, or more.
I hope that's actually like.
Also, I'm not a bad influence.
We're trying to be socially distant here. They're sitting way in the back.
Break wine.
All right.
No, it's you. Never sit on my floor. She does that.
Oh.
Sammy.
Make sure you smell it first before you just like drink.
Hey, Sammy.
I had a grown.
Know that already.
Hello, hello.
Sammy, what's going on?
How's it going? Got Andrew. We got the whole crew here.
Got the whole gang. Hey, Sammy, is Randall on yet?
I don't think so. Let's see.
I just talked to him, so I should be getting on anytime.
She's like,
We're still getting settled in. I got some people here on site at the winery as well. We're social distancing on site. Got to try some of this right here. And then the heel of the boot is making some treats for us once again for our second round of pairing the wines with what we've got. We got a newbie, Christopher. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
See, I think my team background is better than
Anybody else want any? Get a glass. Bring it. Yep. Can only carry so many things.
We also got Emily on the call. Hello, Emily.
Hey there. I'll turn my video on in just a few minutes.
Awesome.
So we have a virtual wine tasting from the Wanderlust Wine. So if you guys want to go in and get yourself a wine glass, or I can pour it in that. You're like, I don't give a shit.
Dad, if you want to use my glass over there, you can for it. My glass is sitting there. Dumbass.
Bring your glass over here.
What?
20 wine
So
without
the name of the cup is the Cigare Volant. So it. Hi, John. Hi, John. You're bringing me the cat. That's awesome. So yeah, we'll get him out. Don't worry. We will get him out.
Jumping on you guys.
But do you smell it?
Three.
I was like, I feel like we haven't had him for 4 years.
Three.
Considering you all weren't even supposed to be here during this.
Got him in 2017.
What, Haley, you said 6?
You should have given us more information. When I tried to talk to you, and you were like, no, 1 o'clock, we're fine.
Oh, that's good. You should definitely get a glass.
Everyone
No,
knows.
Oh, she gave me. She said the wine tasting. Boy,
Offer us too, and I swear their scale wasn't working because
oh, if she said both, I would have said okay. I planned for both. And you did not.
he doesn't look like he lost weight, though. So we agreed though because it's like we'll wake up and like not do anything. We're like, oh, we'll go later, and then we don't. So we agreed that on our days off, like when we wake up, the first thing we're gonna do is
Take him for a walk.
Dogs 1 hour walk.
I like taking on like
I'm wondering about what
Very
age
subjective.
Jack is.
30-minute walks, but it's
no, I
Never gonna hear-
usually like don't have anywhere except for neighborhoods to go, and like it's getting hot as shit.
Take him over to
we walk at St. Edward's.
yeah, or I say take him right over on the creek.
Is that neighborhood behind our?
Bull Creek, but
Yeah, take him over to Bull Creek.
Is that neighborhood behind our?
she has fancy backfalls.
All right, Sammy, Richard. Looks like we're at 5:02, so we may got a couple more people getting started or coming on the call. Maybe start this in the next 2 minutes or so.
Sounds good. Yes, we just had Vito surprise us with another charcuterie board here. Once again, yeah, y'all, if you guys get hungry and you're in the Austin area, these guys are delivering through DoorDash, Grubhub, and Uber Eats. Or you guys can come down, check out the winery, and 6 feet apart, of course. And yeah, these guys are serving it up. We'll see what's going on in their kitchen in a bit. We've got Andrew on the call, and Randall. I don't know if Randall already made it through.
Yes, I am here.
Oh,
Hey, guys.
awesome. Rando, man, it is such a pleasure to have you on this call.
Well, thank you. Thank
We're
you,
excited
sir.
to learn about you. We're excited to learn about your wine, what lies within our glass, and already as we pour it, this color is looking phenomenal. I mean, I'm excited. So, yeah, Richard, ready to go? Sweet. Well, in the meantime, as he prepares, I just want to raise a glass. Once again, thank you, Bonny Doon Vineyards, for being on this call and making yet another great Saturday of quarantine exciting and less painful, So,
Our pleasure.
cheers to that. Santé.
Hey guys, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
All right, good. Yeah, I had to, for some reason, I had to put my headset in. So, hello to everybody. Looks like I've got some folks in my neighborhood as well. Deanne's on here, just probably a little bit down the road, I guess, right? So, all right. Well, Jake, you want to kick us off?
Yes, sir. Well, thank you for joining the virtual wine tasting hosted by Austin, Texas Wine Society and Wanderlust Wine Company. I'm one of the founders of the Austin Wine Society, as well as Richard and Josh. If you can mute Charles, Bill. But like I said, and Sammy is the owner of Wanderlust Wine Company. So, and then we got a couple high table members on here, Alicia and Sean and well, Richard. I'll let you. You got the list of all. I know Carl's on here as well, so I'll let you start with the list and kind of give a little bit background information of what type of wine we're drinking and a little 5-minute brief intro. Then we'll let the winemaker take it from there.
All right. All right, can you guys see this?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So from Bonny Doon, we've got Le Cigare Volant, Cuvée. Now that's a tough one. Umamua. 2018?
Close. It's pronounced just as it's spelled.
Ah.
Oumuamua.
Oumuamua. Okay. All right. Oumuamua. Again, welcome from founders Jake, Josh, myself, high table members Sammy, Alicia, Sean, Michael, and Carl. Co-hosted by Wanderlust Wine Company, where you guys got your wonderful wine today. Special wine celebrity guest, Randall Grahm, winemaker and founder of Bonny Doon. Start off with, so in the back you found out the wine, the grapes from here came from Monterey County, in AVA, California. On the left-hand side here, you've got a map of California, and a little tiny bit here is the Central Coast. And then on the right-hand side, it's got a blow up of Central Coast, and then right in the center of the Monterey AVA, where I guess most all of the grapes for our wine were sourced. Cigare Volant is a 52% Grenache, 35 Cinsault, and 13% Syrah, and it came from a lot of different places. It looks like this time around. All right. From some of the I found the information on the back of the bottle kind of interesting. That the Cigare Volant is I guess French for a flying saucer type of thing,
Actually,
or flying cigar.
Yeah, the French make the distinction between the shape of the UFO. They have two words for UFOs based on their shapes. So there's Cigare Volant, which are the saucer, flying saucers, and the Cigare Volant are the more cylindrical shaped UFOs.
Got it. And then the second wonderful word was from Hawaiian for a comet that was, or asteroid that was found. And so again, this wine is based on a traditional, and this was a new word to me, en cépagement. I guess the blend essentially.
Correct.
Typically Southern Rhone, but in this particular case, instead of the Mourvèdre, you put in Cinsault. Right.
More Cinsault, more than normal.
More Cinsault. So usually most people will know the GSM, from the French Chateauneuf du Pape. Characteristics, for that particular blend is raspberries, blackberries, herbs, baking spices, lavender. I did. I'm on. Email. Sorry about that. Taste, floral notes, red aromas. It's usually dry, medium to full body, medium high tannins, medium acidity, and your alcohol will be 13.5 to 15, depending on the make. Now, this particular bottle is 13.5, which I tend to like a little bit on the lighter alcohol side. Food pairings. It's very, very Mediterranean. Anything with Mediterranean spices, red peppers, sage, rosemary, olives. Pizza came to mind with black olives, or something like the French pissaladier, their version of pizza with caramelized onions, anchovies, and olives. Also, steak with bone marrow, braised lamb, and cheeseburgers. I mean, it's actually a very, very versatile style of wine. And at the end of this thing, if you guys care, I've got the sources of where I got all this information. And so we'll go back to our winemaker now, who has a lot more information on this lovely stuff.
Thank you, Richard. Where do we begin? Where do we begin? Let me tell you about the history of this wine, if I may. We made the first vintage of Cigare Volant in 1984. I didn't really know much about anything back then. Prior to that, I had made an effort to make the Great American Pinot Noir. That was sort of my obsession, and I failed spectacularly. Actually, I didn't fail. I found Pinot Noir from Oregon Pinot Noir grapes from Oregon that were superb. The problem is I lived in California and the grapes were in Oregon. So I realized that was not a particularly tenable proposition to continue. But I wanted to stay in the grapes. I was trying to grow Pinot Noir in the Santa Cruz Mountains in the eponymous hamlet of Bonny Doon, California. And I was failing spectacularly. Okay. And so when you have your own vineyard is no damn good, it's quite problematic. And I thought, I had gone to Davis, I made an emotional investment in learning how to become a winemaker and grape grower. I didn't want to leave the wine business with my tail between my legs. So I luckily at the same time made the acquaintance of the Albanian wine merchant Kermit Lynch, who had a little shop in Albany, California. And Kermit was the one who really introduced me to Rhone varieties back then, which were largely unknown in this country. He was selling Chat Hermitage for $12 a bottle in the day, and you had to buy the white to get the red back then. Anyways, so I came to the very simplistic hypothesis that it was warm and dry in southern France and warm and dry in central coast of California. So maybe Rhone varieties would do well. But back then, now it's obvious that that is the case, but back then it was not as obvious because no one was doing it. There was some initial forays. Phelps was fooling around with Syrah, making some truly horrific wines. They were doing some other good things, some cool things with Shoyreba and this and that, but their Syrah was really not so great. Actually, this is when Walter Schug was the winemaker at Phelps way back in the day. But it turns out that David Bruce had actually made a red Grenache, a big, rich, powerful red Grenache as early as 1970 and 71. And I still found bottles of these on the shelf at High Time Liquors in Costa Mesa, California, 14 years later. And one of them was good and one of them was not so good. But the fact that he had done it basically showed it could be done. So I started poking around the area where he had found his Grenache in the Hecker Pass area of Gilroy, California. And the vineyard he had bought from had been ripped out, but I found another vineyard not far from that vineyard. It was about a 40-year-old vineyard, and the wine came out miraculously really well. In retrospect, many things could have gone wrong. Everything could have gone wrong, but it didn't. And the first wine we made came out very nicely. I followed pretty much the Chateauneuf du Pape recipe, which is to say virtually all Grenache. Don't age it in small barrels, don't rack it, make sure the grapes are ripe, and don't mess with it too much. And that was actually a recipe for some pretty nice wine. And then the next year was a little bit better. And then it's been working over the years. I've had a lot of excursions and detours and false steps and learnings and unlearnings. So it's been a wild ride. And then with the 18 vintage, we changed the style pretty dramatically for a number of reasons, most of them financial, truth be told. We substituted a higher percentage of Cinsault for the Mourvèdre. Now, Mourvèdre is an interesting grape in California. Prior to the 18 vintage, we've been buying Mourvèdre from very old vines in Oakley, California, Oakley and Antioch. And these were 100-year-old, ungrafted, unirrigated vineyards. But Oakley is beastly hot. It's sandy soil, so your feet actually burn when you if you were foolish enough to walk barefoot. Anyhow, so the Mourvèdre gave the wine a certain different structure, but also made the wine a lot more backward when it was youthful. So by adding Cinsault, we've diminished the amount of tannin, increased the acidity, and made a wine with a slightly different profile, much more elegant and Burgundian, if you will, and less Chateauneufian and more Burgundian, if that makes any sense.
So back to your
we
original.
We can talk about Cinsault as well. Anyhow, yeah, big circle. Everything in life is a circle. It's a circle of life. All I want to do is make Burgundy. That's all I want to do in life, anyways. I just don't need to make it out of Pinot Noir. I just need to make it out of other grapes like Cinsault. So there. I think Burgundy is a state of mind. I don't know that it necessarily has to be a literal thing. I think it's a consciousness, if you will. Anyhow, I love this wine. This wine is really delicious. There's so many paradoxes about the wine business, or things that are counterintuitive. And you have to be careful of received wisdom. The things that hold true in Europe don't necessarily obtain in the New World. For example, in Châteauneuf-du-Pape, Grenache tends to be a very early maturing, they call it an oxidative grape, oxidative cépage, whereas Mourvèdre is a reductive cépage. And theoretically in Europe, the vintages with higher percentages of Mourvèdre live longer than the vintages with higher percentage of Grenache. California is, in my experience, it seems to be the reverse. Oddly enough, the Grenache vintages, the high Grenache vintages, seem to live a lot longer than the Mourvèdre vintages. I don't understand why. I suspect it may have to do with pH. Our pHs tend to be quite low, and in California, it seems to act as a preservative. So low pH, higher acid wines tend to live a lot longer. Also, maybe it has to do with the maturity of the tannins. I don't think that the tannins are not quite as ripe in the Grenache as they are in the Mourvèdre. The Mourvèdre, they tend to be very ripe. As a result, they say the wines ripen either on the vine or in the bottle. So when you pick ultra ripe grapes, or when the tannins are ultra ripe, the wine is really not capable of the same amount of evolution as if the tannins were a little greener, if you will, if that makes any sense.
How much are you racking this wine in particular? Are you racking it a whole lot or not very much? It seems to have kind of a little bit of a haze to it, sort of like I see in some of those Southern Rhone wines.
Yeah, partially cloudy with the chance of occasional whatever. This wine wasn't filtered and was racked a couple of times, but when we do the racks, we do them very non-aerative, very anaerobic. Keep the fruit. Every time you rack a wine, you're adding oxygen and you're diminishing the SO2. So we try to make wines with lower levels of SO2. So handling the wine just a lot more gently. And this style of wine really doesn't need a lot of oxygen in its youth. When the wine is very young, when it's actually in the fermenter, we will administer a lot of oxygen while it's still on its skins, and then post-fermentation, still on its skins, we'll do what's called microboulage or microoxygenation. But after the wine finishes, we'll keep the amount of oxygen down to a dull roar and kind of keep it in a slightly reduced, reductive élevage, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I do find a lot of those Southern Rhone wines, when they see too much oxygen, they're just not very fresh. Like we tasted a good example last night that just saw way too much oxygen, and that gaminess can come out in a really, really unattractive way. And I was relatively surprised at how fresh this wine was. It was super fresh. Like if I were to
look at the color. The color is a function of the pH too. So for Rhone varieties, it's bloody hot in Châteauneuf-du-Pape, and you're not going to see the same color, the same kind of blue purple tone in a Châteauneuf-du-Pape. You'll have more of the orange tinge to it.
Even though the description that I said earlier was for a Rhone variety, this still has the absolute first two notes of raspberry and blackberry right up front.
Black raspberry.
Yeah.
Black raspberry. The other thing, one of your notes was cooking spice, and I think there's a kind of a clove character. There's a pepperiness, or maybe even a clove, kind of almost a mentholated aspect to it. Kind of that cooling quality on the palate. It's like a little bit of a little oral anesthesia, if you will, a little Novocaine.
Hey Randall, why co-ferment the Syrah and the Cinsault together?
Because it's a really good idea to do so. No, it's a traditional. I mean, I wasn't the one to think it up. It's a standard practice. So Cinsault, people don't know much about Cinsault. Cinsault is grown in South Africa. It's grown in southern France, in the Midi. And it's a large grape. It's also a table grape as well as being a wine grape. And it's a ginormous cluster, generally, without a lot of tannin, without a lot of color. But it does well in a warmer climate. It's pretty drought tolerant. But it's very perfumed. When you keep the yield down to a dull roar, it has a beautiful cherry top note to it. But the color is quite unstable. And if you want to stabilize the color of Cinsault, the best technique is to co-ferment it with Syrah, which has anthocyanins to burn. And the anthocyanins are sort of act as the primary antioxidant protecting the tannins and the anthocyanins in the Cinsault. So the way that these usually works is you crush the Cinsault into a tank. You bleed some of the juice off for rosé, typically, because Cinsault, you definitely want to concentrate the skin to juice ratio a bit if you can, just to get a little more concentration. And then after the juice is drawn off, you crush the Syrah on top of it, and then allow the fermentation to begin. And they work really well together. Syrah, you want to have kind of more Cinsault than Syrah. Syrah kind of takes over pretty easily. But what's interesting about how the two work together is the Syrah is very peppery, and the Cinsault has a note which is like one register, one octave above the Syrah. So it sits, the aromatics kind of sit on top of the peppery aromatics and kind of tame and civilize the Syrah a bit, if you will.
Man, I am loving. Let me actually go outside because I got the presentation on a huge speaker, so I'm hearing myself. A lot of feedback. But Randall, I mean, I gotta say, man, this is a phenomenal Rhone blend that we're trying here. I mean, GSC, it's not GSM, but it's GSC right here, what we have in our glass. The color's beautiful. Summer's kicking in quickly, and this is such a refreshing. I'm writing.
How much of this have you had?
So, it's a refreshing glass of wine. No, it's very refreshing. It's got this complexity, and the price. This is, oh my God, this is phenomenal. And so, I would love to learn as much as I can about you. I mean, you have been a pioneer not only for Rhone varietals in your state, but also for screw caps. I mean, screw caps, you defended this. I mean, you're showing people how you can have a high quality wine inside of a screw cap bottle. And the same thing we're doing here. I mean, we're showing people that you can offer premium wines in keg. And so at the end of this conversation, I'll ask you if you can offer some of your wines in kegs to serve here at Wanderlust Wine Company, which I hope you do. But
we can.
What was
yes we can, and yes we keg.
Perfect.
There you
and
go,
so
Sammy.
I'm just excited, to see other great producers around the U.S. defending alternative and innovative packaging, and at the same time, I guess, providing perfect examples of quality wines that can be placed in these types of packaging options. But if you guys are at home right now with that bottle, hopefully, maybe you're on halfway through already. You'll notice that on the screw cap, it has a little alien head on it. And so going back to the Cigare Volant, I mean, that is great marketing. I mean, did you experience anything alien related, a vision, or winemaking experience? You're like,
for a long time, I've been ready to go. I've been ready to blast off. Alas, no hope, no help from that end. But let's talk about screw caps, because you talked about that as an alternative closure. And there's still an enormous amount of misunderstanding and confusion about screw caps. There's the belief by many, even really serious wine people, that wines in screw cap are kind of stuck in amber, that they don't evolve properly. They do evolve. It's a slightly different evolution. It's a slightly different timeline. But they live longer, in fact, than the same wine sealed with a cork. They tend to be much more closed in when the wines are young. They often retreat into kind of a backward or dumb phase, or even slightly reductive phase sometimes. This is not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, if you want a wine that's going to live a long time, it's very typical, whether it's sealed with a cork or a screw cap, for a wine to go through that backward phase. Every great Burgundy vintage will go through this backward phase of 5 to 7 to 8 years after release. Anyhow, the thing with screw caps, pretty much everyone with a screw cap benefits from decantation. And the other thing with screw caps is they think about it as a way the wine is sort of gathering itself unto itself. It's kind of consolidating, it's kind of centering itself. So as a result, when a wine that's bottled in screw cap, when you open it, it'll be reticent for the first hour or half hour, but after you've opened it, the wine's going to live a lot longer post-opening. So typically our wines, many wines in screw caps, but our wines in particular, will live 3, 4, 5, 7 days after the wines have been opened, after you've sealed them up with a screw cap. So it's actually a very elegant, fiendishly clever closure. Very, very thrilled with it, in fact.
I'll just chime in on that, Randall. Andrew here with Bonny Doon. One of the things that I actually learned about in school was that Randall held a funeral for the cork. And you know, Randall kind of harps on me when I get too into the marketing side, but I just thought this was like the most unique, coolest thing. He closed, well, the way that it's told to me, and I think there's some elaboration here, but I'll let Randall tell. But the story that I learned in school was that he closed a main street in New York City and had a funeral procession with a hearse and a coffin and a body made of cork, Monsieur Bouchon, you know, cork in French, and delivered a eulogy and had a black wake. And it was, you know, somber and kind of the farewell. Randall, do you want to kind of elaborate on that? This is something that's just stuck with me for like a decade.
Most of that is almost true.
Most of that is almost true.
This was in 2001, and we were confronted with kind of the daunting prospect of selling a whole bunch of wine in screw cap, and we really needed to make a big splash. We had bottled the entire production of the 2001 Big House Red, or 2000 vintage rather, Big House Red in screw cap. It was about 50,000 cases. So I was kind of looking to make a big splash, and corks were really bad back then. They were just dreadful, even way worse than they are now, but they were horrible. We had tried to use a synthetic closure called Supreme Cork, which was also equally bad in its own way, unique way. So I was kind of really had no alternative. I felt I had no other alternative but for screw caps. And screw caps had been studied for a long time in France and Australia, and they were shown to be a good technical closure. The issue was really one of perceived consumer acceptance or consumer non-acceptance. There was the belief that people just would not buy premium wine in screw cap. Absolutely not. The wine writers, the somms, all were up in arms about the quality of corks. Literally, people believed that 1 cork in 8 or 1 in 10 were absolutely bad and had low levels of some levels of TCA, either palpable or not. Anyhow, it was a PR challenge to kind of introduce the world to screw caps in a big way. So we did this event in Grand Central Station. We rented what's called the Campbell apartment, and we did have a hearse and a coffin and a corpse made out of corks, Monsieur Bouchon. And somehow I persuaded Jancis Robinson to come to New York and deliver a eulogy for Monsieur Bouchon. And she did. It was brilliant. And then we had a lunch of black food, and we had a wake for Monsieur Bouchon. And we got a little bit of publicity about this. It was a stunt, honestly, but it made the point. But the take-home surprise for me was that even though people might have preferred wine and cork, if they liked the wine, they were very happy, equally happy to drink it in screw cap. So it was really kind of a non-issue. We were pushing against something, the door just opened on its own. So it was not a big drama to sell wine in screw cap.
Awesome.
Good story. Thanks, Andrew. I like that.
That's awesome how you were able to even get Jancis Robinson. Now we've got Harry on chat asking. So we've got this slight cloudiness. I think you touched base a little bit on it earlier. So it's mainly from, I guess, the winemaking style that you were intending, or just something that came about one of these varietals?
Well, you know, when you stabilize wine, generally the more tannin in the wine, the brighter the wine falls. So Pinot Noir, it's sometimes hard to get Pinot Noir to fall bright. Grenache and Cinsault are the same way. So I'm actually pretty thrilled that we're and you know, little colloid action doesn't disturb me too much. You don't want to bottle cloudy wine. I don't want to bottle cloudy wine, but I'm pretty.
Yeah.
Hey, Randall, I think you're breaking up quite a bit. Are you in the good Wi-Fi spot of the house? Can you hear me right now? We can't hear you. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
can hear you
perfectly.
Okay.
I think it was the aliens. I think the UFO finally came through.
Yeah. We're keeping them out of the vineyard, but they're attacking Randall's house.
Yeah. And speaking
They
about
probably-
this world, we I guess while Randall comes back in, we've got the boys here from Heel of the Boot just to make you guys a little bit hungry. What do we got here, Vito?
Again with that.
We've got the Texas. I mean, he's not the South Bay. He is the Basil Bay. Basil Bay making some more riqueta here. If you guys get a little hungry, get the drunchies going from this delicious Cigare Volant.
I got it last week. It was awesome. I had to drive down there to get it because it looked too good.
Yeah, we had some stuff yesterday that was fantastic. It was so good.
There's a savory quality to the Cigare Volant, and I think all the Bonny Doon wines really have this kind of umami characteristic. Even in the Van Gris, the rosé, I get this savoriness, and the word that I think of, and Randall can hear me right now, I'm sure he's rolling his eyes, but there's like, it's nourishing. It kind of like reminds me of home, that savory characteristic. And I don't think it's just from the Syrah. It's, you know, these are kind of older world style wines, really unique coming out of California. And I particularly, like, I'm kind of obsessed with this wine right now, but I've followed Randall's wines for a very long time, and they would kind of pop up when I needed them the most. You know, I remember going through like a really bad breakup and retreating to a little town with no self-service, and like there was a 2011 Cigare Volant on sale randomly. Like, what is it doing in Big Sur? And I bought it, and it was like this nourishment, you know, and I would text Randall and hope that he would write back. I think that savory characteristic is quite unique. Randall, are you back? Or do we lose you completely? I don't see him anymore.
Back.
Oh, there you are. Okay, good. You're completely shrouded in darkness, by the way.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, man. Hey, Randall, can we talk about Rotundone a little bit? So guys, there's kind of like this little white pepper characteristic. And one of the things that Randall's got me excited about is the compound Rotundone. Can you hear me, Randall? You want to talk about Rotundone a little bit?
Rotundone is the molecule that gives us the peppery quality, and it's prevalent in cool climate Syrah, especially in Côte Rôtie, in the old clone of the serene clone of Syrah. But it's also found in Grenache, and you find it even in Gruner Veltliner, a number of Italian grapes as well. So it's a compound that's synthesized at the very end of the growing season. So one of the things that makes California unique in our opportunity is the preternaturally long growing season. So we're able to grow grapes in a season much longer than exists in France. So the Grenache, for example, is harvested usually like the last week in October. You know, no one picks grapes in southern France the last week of October. But because of this long growing season, we have the opportunity to synthesize in a cooler site. We have the opportunity to synthesize this particular molecule. So you find it again in the Grenache and the Syrah, and it's particularly prevalent in the one vineyard we buy our Grenache from, the Alta Loma vineyard.
Awesome. We've got some people here on the chat asking. So, I mean, we're trying the Bonny Doon Vineyard, the Cigare Volant, but there's different labels. I would expect different wines that you're making. What would be the next level up, or some other cool experimental wines that people should be on the lookout for? And also, along with that, do you guys ship? Would you guys be able to ship wines here to some of our attendees in Texas, direct to consumer? Or do you have some other stuff? I know Chris Beard is here on the call. So maybe whatever he has in stock as well here at Serendipity that could be funneled through Wanderlust Wine Company. But what other cool wines do y'all have right now currently in the market for people to check out? We just had a gentleman not too long ago talk about doing a Pinot Gris rosé, and everybody was like, "What? You know, what are you talking about?" But anything like that kind of jumps out that could kind of distinguish or people should keep an eye out for from y'all?
You're probably not going to find it in the Texas market. We have some kooky wines, some seriously kooky wines back here in California in the collection. All sorts of genre of pink wine, including something called Van Gris, which is a pink wine that's been aged outdoors for 9 months in the sun in glass demijohn. That is extremely cool wine. I didn't think I would like it at all, frankly. I thought I was going to hate it, but it's amazing. It's very cool. It's kind of sherry-like and Vin Jaune-like. It's really, really nice. What else? We got a
Randall, don't forget the Peak Pool, the darling Peak Pool, the lip stinger.
We got Peak Pool. So Peak
I'm
Pool,
like obsessed with Peak Pool right now. It's a low alcohol. Yeah, go ahead, Randall.
Yeah, Peak Pool is a funny grape. It's grown in the Midi, right by the Mediterranean, and it's a great wine for seafood. It's a low alcohol, high acid, super savory, almost saline in character. Fabulous complement for oysters and crustacea, if you will.
Oh, nice.
I kind of put my foot in my mouth a little bit. There was like a dry January campaign that was back in January being promoted, and I posted down with dry January, drink Peak Pool, and it didn't go over very well. I was reprimanded. I don't think we should be leaning into dry January as an industry. I think we should be drinking more Peak Pool, and I'll keep that to myself next time, I guess. But if you haven't tried our Peak Pool, it's pretty fantastic, and it's a little under 11% alcohol. Peak Pool translates to lip stinger. It stings the lips, and there's just this awesome acidity, kind of a savory characteristic, and it's fun to say. If you're feeling down, if you just say the words Peak Pool a couple of times, you'll feel better.
You'll definitely sound fancy at your dinner date. Can I please have a bottle of Peak Pool?
Randall, you want to talk about Vermentino a little bit? That's a cool one. The Cigare Blanc, kind of the white analog.
Yeah. So Vermentino, we made an analogous switch in our formulation of the Cigare Blanc along with the Cigare Volant, substituting, deleting the Roussan and substituting Vermentino, and then with the current vintage, some Clairette Blanche. But Vermentino is another extremely promising Mediterranean grape that is largely unknown in this country, but it's a fabulous grape in a changing climate, in a drier, warmer climate. It has great natural acidity. Again, a lot of beautiful flavors at lower alcohol, a nice saline character, citrus character, and its charms, not a lot of tannin, but its charms are very evident at an early age. It actually would probably be a really good grape to grow in Texas. If you're looking for oddball things for Texas, it could do quite well.
Yeah, I actually was going to ask you right about that same thing. I was like going to say, it's like what, Texas has got, it's different than California, where it's a little higher altitude, it's drier, it's irrigated, but it has cool nights, probably closer to Mendoza than it is to California. What do you recommend?
Several grapes, but there's one in particular that would kill in Texas, kill. And I'm sure that no one is doing it, but if you need me to come out and set you guys up, the grape is called Uva di Troia. Troia, it's grown in Puglia near Bari. It is the best warm climate grape by far. Bari, I've been to Bari in the summer. Bari in the summer makes Fresno seem like Carmel. I mean, it is hot. It is hot. It's 90 degrees at night. It's 100 degrees a day, 90 degrees at night. It doesn't cool down. People eat dinner at midnight because it's finally tolerable to go outside at midnight. So it is bloody hot. It's grown on pergola. So it's an overhead trellis, and you actually walk underneath the vines. And when you create a pergola, you create a lot of moisture underneath the pergola, and the higher moisture content of the air contributes to evaporative cooling. So it actually is about 10 degrees cooler under the pergola than it is outside the pergola. So it moderates the temperature, it keeps the grapes protected from direct sun, and it's a very elegant wine. It smells like violets. Troia in dialect is streetwalker, prostitute. And it's so named because of the perfume, the violet perfume, so called. So, but it's a super nice wine. I think it's a red grape, correct? Red grape? Red grape, absolutely red grape. Yeah. Good structure, ages well. Rivera is a very top producer of Troia, and it's not super expensive. I forget what they call their proprietary blend, but it's fabulous grape. Aglianico, I think, would also be quite interesting for Texas. Obviously, Nero d'Avola would be good, but I look at Greco would be nice as a white grape.
Yeah, we have some Vermentino in Texas. I had I got to meet with the winemaker at Dukeman, and their Vermentino's fantastic. I was shocked that the wine was made in Texas. Just at how well it held up. So
yeah, they also have it in keg.
Yeah, and then Sammy's got it in a keg.
Oh yeah,
so that's awesome.
We're working on for those on the call. We're actually working on having them next weekend and featuring this amazing varietal that's doing awesome, really awesome here in Texas. But Randall, I mean, would you ever come down to Texas and start your Rhone influence here down in the South, in the true South? This is a poppin' state. Rhone varietals are definitely picking up in some areas here, as you were mentioning. And even though Tempranillo is king for reds right now here, for whites, I mean, there's a big opportunity there. And we'd have you closer to us, We
can provide the heat.
I'd love to. Just with the nonsense goes away, I'll be a lot freer to travel. Right now, it's a little problematic, but
yes, please, Andrew and Randall, you guys are more than welcome to come here to Wanderlust Wine Company. In fact, a little fun Austin fact, you can ride horses in downtown Austin, completely legal. You just gotta find parking. You know, it's hard to find parking downtown. We got about 15 minutes left, folks. Definitely want to open it up to the people that are here on the call to ask any questions to Andrew and Randall. Are you guys at the winery right now? Are you guys quarantining in the vineyards? We would love to see some shots of the vineyards if you guys have them right there outside. If not, we'll send them some pictures to the group later.
I was in the vineyard earlier today. But now I'm home right now.
And I'm sheltered. I'm not even wearing pants right now.
Oh.
Apparently,
I'm
a high
joking, I'm joking.
high
I'm wearing
percentage
pants,
of
I'm wearing
people,
pants.
a high percentage of people actually admitted to not wearing pants while working from home. So.
No, we
Randall,
love Texas.
I missed the beginning of this, so I may have missed some of this. But so where are you guys growing most of your stuff? Because you're obviously very Rhone oriented, and my wife and I are huge fans of Paso, which is also very Rhone oriented, or has been. Are you guys involved in Paso at all?
Mostly Monterey County, but we're getting fruit from Paso as well. But mostly Monterey County. The cooler, we're trying to
farther north
on the cooler sites if at all possible.
Right.
But all central coast at this point.
Yeah, I think
some of the Vermentino, Randall, Creston. There's some warmer Vermentino in the Cigar Blanc.
Yeah, Creston actually is in Templeton area, and that there's a interesting. We're having grown for us two varieties. Actually, the Roll clone of Vermentino and the Pigato clone of Vermentino, both are grown in Templeton, and do exceptionally well there.
Mm-hmm. Well, the very first single varietal pick pool I ever had was in Paso, and it was delightful. It was just sort of an eye opener. I was like, wow, I didn't even know this existed, and such a cool grape.
Yeah, Paso's got a lot of a lot of potential. The thing about Paso is there's a lot of exuberance, and that, you know, a little bit of exuberance goes a long way. And sometimes the exuberance translates into, you know, more is better. So, like, you know, exuberance is good, but I'd rather not see it 15% alcohol exuberance. Like 14% alcohol exuberance is about right.
Yeah, there's definitely a battle down there between the followers of Robert and Parker, and, you know, and the people who are trying not to be.
Yeah. It's still the damnedest thing. People still like power and concentration in their wine, and many people still have no problem drinking super high octane wine. I shouldn't be an I mean, I should only speak for myself. That's not my preferred style of wine.
Some of us still like subtlety and nuance, and
Yep.
so, and I do not like once I see 15 on the bottle, I don't have the best hopes for it, liking it myself. But I mean, we have had some that are balanced, but in general, I don't like them that high.
Well, the other thing is they don't age very well either. I mean, they just don't. They can be very pleasant when they're young, but they're not going anywhere. They're not on a trajectory of more life, that's for sure.
I did some research for an article that I wrote about Zinfandel, because it was doing very well. And one of the things that was mentioned was that people buy it because of the high alcohol.
If you've ever been to a Zap tasting in San Francisco, you'd understand.
Okay. I didn't quite understand why the alcohol content was the goal there. So.
Right, it's a feature, not a bug.
Right, exactly.
Hey, Randall, Chris, hey, Chris, good to see you. There's a question about the Van Gris, California's original pink wine. Randall's been making pink wine for 30 years, way before it was very cool. How many years, Randall?
39 years.
39 years. And you know, it's the Bonny Doon, it's a true Van Gris, VIN, a gray wine. Do you want to just kind of talk about the blend there and the difference between a rosé and a Van Gris?
Sure. So Vin Gris is a certain style of rosé. It's a particularly elegant style of rosé. It's not made as a byproduct of red wine production, but rather standalone grapes or bespoke grapes for the pink wine. It's picked at a lower Brix typically, as befitting the style, and it gets minimal skin contact. So it's either direct pressed or crushed into the press and pressed off straight away. So as a result, it's higher in acid than a typical rosé, lower in alcohol, and paler in color, and more discreet. You know, the skins have a lot of the aromatic components, the fruity components. So Vin Gris tend to be more floral than fruity. And especially, you know, our winemaking technique is really meant to eschew these sort of artificial fruit flavors. We want fruit in the wine, but we don't want it to be overtly fruity. So we use a lot of lees, stirring post-fermentation, and the lees, the batonnage, absorbs a lot of these primary fruit esters, as well as contributes some nice textural elements to the wine. But it totally wipes out these kind of tutti fruity, Jolly Rancher-ish aromas, which we despise.
Yeah, guys, if you haven't tried the Bonny Doon Vin Gris, the pink wine, there's like this very unique creaminess to it that that I kind of find dangerous. It doesn't last very long in our house. And what that's the lees contact and the kind of the weight from the lees.
It's not is there any malolactic from that wine that could be producing that?
Not in the 19. In the 18, two of the tanks underwent mallow, but not in the 19. Was no mallow. Also, no acid. Well, minimal acid addition. We try to pick the grapes at a really nice acidity level, so we don't have to fix the acid.
In the 19, there's 7 grapes, if I remember, Randall. It's predominantly Grenache, but then there's Grenache Gris, Grenache Blanc, Cinsault, Peak Pool, a little splash of Vermentino, and then something quite unique called Clairette Blanche, which I'd never heard of, and Randall got me all excited about. What's Clairette Blanche? And am I saying it correctly, Randall?
You are. Clairette Blanche is it's a white grape. It's a blending grape, although it's used in sparkling wine, Clairette de Die. It's a pretty neutral grape, but it has a lot of, it gives the wine continuity. It kind of knits together the wine. So it's a team player, not really a star on its own, but a great blending grape.
Red Blanche. What do you think about picking from a few hundred acres, maybe in between Driftwood or maybe Evant, Texas? I have a buddy who was like, oh, maybe we should have that experiment happen at the ranch. I was like, well, maybe if
I know a guy.
I was like, well, you know, we're here.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that would be a cool experiment to try something that no one's ever tried before in Texas. I think that would be interesting.
Are there grapes growing there right now or in the neighborhood?
I know in Driftwood they're growing some grapes for sure. Evant, Texas is north, and I have no clue if they're growing grapes there or not. But I do know it does get hotter than hell in both areas.
So what can we expect in the keg format? I gotta make my plug again.
So there's 4 kegs. It's Cigare Volant, Peak Pool, the Vin Gris, and then a Grenache with just a splash of Syrah in it, with Claude de Gilroy. Those are the 4, right, Randall? Am I missing something? Is there? That's it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Randall, would you just tell the story of the label real quickly? I think there's so much. I think these wines are just fantastic. I'm obviously kind of obsessed with them, but I don't think you need to know anything about wine or Rhone to think that the alien spacecraft attempting to land in the vineyard is just ridiculous. And could you just tell the story of the label, how you found the artwork, and
Sure. So this is this is a true story. It turns out that in 1954 there was a mayor of one of the villages in Châteauneuf-du-Pape who became very paranoid about UFOs landing in the vineyards. Apparently there were a number of sightings of UFOs both in 1953 and 54 in North America and in Europe, but especially in southern France there were a lot of sightings, and he just lost it altogether. So he persuaded the town council to adopt an ordinance officially prohibiting the landing of UFOs in the vineyards of Châteauneuf-du-Pape. The ordinance further states that any UFO that were to land was to be taken immediately to the pound. Okay, fine, it's worked. The ordinance was perfect. So when I first read about this, I thought, these people are completely nuts, but what a great idea. This will be a great label. So I envisioned kind of a very sedate, conservative label with just this kind of one slightly subversive element occurring discreetly in the background of the UFO kind of lurking behind a tree. So Chuck House and I found an old edition of on Bordeaux Chateau with woodcuts or engravings of these old chateau, and we actually literally pieced them together. It's a composite of about 6 different engravings, and then the spaceship is from Jules Verne. Anyhow, so the label was originally done in this kind of very old-fashioned sepia tone, you know, a label with a lot of gravitas and sobriety to it. And I thought, you know, this might, with the change of the cuvee and the new style, this is an opportunity to change up the label a little bit and introduce a new element to it. And what we did is we started with the original sepia tone background, and then the beam that's coming from the spaceship, which you can imagine is either a death beam or a tractor beam of some sort, in fact is not really a death beam, but it's actually a life beam, and it's bringing life into the vineyard, life into this new label and into this new brand. And it's colorizing, if you will. So this is a conceit which I took from Wizard of Oz, you know, or there's another movie 10, 15 years ago called Pleasantville, which is a great movie if you ever haven't seen it, where a black and white existence gets slowly colorized, and people, their emotions begin to come out. So this is what the aliens are bringing to us. They're bringing a springtime and a rebirth, if you will. This is kind of an Easter moment, if you will.
That's awesome. I mean,
behind the new label.
If you can connect us with them, because we need some help with Pierce disease down here, maybe we can throw some light to prevent that, and other types of natural vineyard management. As you guys see here, we've got a little vineyard here in downtown Austin, little Thompson Seedless.
Thompson.
That's funny. I actually visited your website when I was putting together the notes, and I thought it was pretty funny that even your cursor turns into a little alien when you get onto the site. That was clever.
We can't resist shtick.
It's cute.
Awesome, guys. Well, we've got time for one more question. I don't know if anyone wants to jump in real quick.
A question. So you talk about some of the aromatic varietals. Do you guys do anything with Viognier?
Well, not lately. Historically, actually, in California, we have a Viognier Vin de Glacier, a dessert wine made from Viognier that's very nice. And it is historically, I've often co-fermented Viognier and Syrah. It's a long, painful story. I needn't get into it, but I actually grew Viognier for a number of years inadvertently, thinking it was Roussanne in our vineyard in Bonny Doon. Ended up in a terrible lawsuit. It was a big mistake. And there's actually now a Randall Grahm clone of Viognier in California, which originally was believed to be Roussanne by me. it did not end well. But
So
anyways,
you mentioned co-fermenting with Syrah. That's kind of that's an old-fashioned technique, isn't it? Like I know other people do it.
well, in Côte Rôtie, they're actually they're literally interplanted, and you'll do Syrah, Viognier, Syrah, 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 Viognier. So it's typically
Syrah.
Syrah, about 5 to 10% of the vineyard is planted to Viognier.
Okay. Yeah, because I think I know several other, like, I think Coupe and a few others do that as well. That sort of co-fermenting with the Syrah, and I always wondered where that came from.
Yeah, it's going on for hundreds, if not thousands, of years in Côte Rôtie.
Kind of a fun fact on Viognier. The word Viognier comes from I believe it's an ancient Greek word that means the road to hell. Viognier, the road to hell. Yeah, and I told this to a very predominant Viognier grower here, Lorraine Albin Randall, and she said, "I've been making Viognier longer than you've been alive. That's wrong." And I pulled it up on the internet, and I was like, "Look, it says the road to hell." And the story, as I've heard it, and Randall, feel free to build on this or disagree. In Rhone, back in the day, as you drove your carriage to the red light district, to the sinful area of town, it was lined with Viognier, the road to hell. I kind of like that. I don't know how much truth there is to that. Have you ever heard that, Randall?
No.
Neither had Lorraine Albin, but if you Google it, you will find something similar on that. It's a few pages down. Viognier is also, it's a really difficult grape to grow. It doesn't really show water stress. It'll look like it doesn't need any water, and then it'll suddenly crash. I've had not nearly the troubles of Randall with thinking it was Roussanne and finding out it was Viognier, but on the grape growing side, I've struggled with Viognier before. The road to hell.
Well, Viognier was in very bad shape in the 60s and 70s. A lot of the vineyards in Condrieu were very virused, and it was not a well grape. And Condrieu as an appellation almost disappeared. So I don't know if there's
a new Ralph Steadman label, the road to hell Viognier.
We could call him. Randall, can we get Ralph Steadman to do another label?
I love Ralph, but I don't know have the energy. I don't have the intestinal fortitude anymore to deal with it. I love Ralph, but I just don't have it in me anymore. It's a challenge. It's a Ralph. It's a Ralph.
Funny.
That would be a cool one though, Harry. Very cool. The road to hell from Ralph Steadman.
Oh, he would be perfect.
I love that idea. Sounds like a trademark nightmare, but we'll see.
Yes.
Thank you guys so much for your time today. Just wanted to raise one more time our glasses. Thank you, Andrew.
Definitely.
Thank you, Randall, for sharing your stories and your delicious wines with us. Oh, we've got the Basil Bay coming back. He's he made it for everyone here on the chat, but unfortunately, we'll have to sacrifice ourselves and eat these sandwiches for you guys. Basil Bay's back in the building. But these are delicious wines. I cannot wait to try the other ones. Chris Beard, let's definitely get together to try the other wines that are in the keg format, so that we can continue this relationship we have with you guys, Bonny Doon Vineyards, and then hopefully bring both of you boys here to the south and show you some southern hospitality and celebrate together.
Yeah.
Cheers, everyone.
So delicious. Thank you so much.
Randall, what's a kind of a Bonny Doon cheers?
Oy vey.
Oy vey. It's a rough cheers. Oy geweld.
Oy geweld.
There you go.
Hi guys.
Thanks so much, guys.
So we have an homemade sandwich with the meatballs over here. We are just putting a little fresh basil, just.
Vito's just trying to make you guys a little hungry.
It works.
Looks amazing.
Man, I don't know if they serve meatball sandwiches down in Rhone, but they should. They definitely should, especially with that spiciness coming from that Syrah. Oh, man. But all right, everyone. Thank you so much. As we said, we're looking forward to having hopefully Dukeman next weekend. We'll finally switch to some white wines. I know we've been heavy on the reds, and We did a few rosés. And then the following weekend, we'll have Topless Creek, and then we'll be tasting their rosé, which, you know, speaking of Rhone varietals, I think they have one of the best Rhone varietal rosés, and they'll be on tap as well. So we'll see,
nice.
Andrew. I'll try with Chris to see what's up with y'all's Vin Gris. Definitely excited about
Yeah.
that.
Live long and screw cap, guys.
Yeah. And then we'll play some, we'll have some Viognier and play some Highway to Hell here, you know, at the winery.
Awesome.
That's pretty funny.
But I'll give you guys, for those new to the concept, Wanderlust Wine Company, we're based here in downtown Austin. We have 56 wines on tap, as you see here, self-pour. So you guys pour your own glass and you
Super
get
cool.
Charged by the ounce. So it's the froyo of wine. You know, you're paying by the ounce. And Austin, Texas Wine Society here on the call. If you haven't checked them out already, it is a free membership right now, a free Facebook community that is meant to foster wine appreciation and the culture here in Austin, Texas. So we thank you, every single one of you, for your time, and happy Saturday. Let's hit it.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much,
Bye.
Sammy.
Enjoy.
Austin Wine
Someday.
Society, Chris Beard. Great to see everybody.